Welcome to the Social Workers radio talk show on WCDB Albany 90.9 FM with co-host Dr. Eric Hardiman and Alyssa Lotmore. Here at the Social Workers, we address issues important to our communities with social work students, alumni, and community partners as our guests.
As part of the University at Albany School of Social Welfare, we hope to take social work beyond the classroom and agency settings and directly to the public, because the public is the client. Catch us on air, online, and anytime.
And welcome to the Social Workers on WCDB Albany. My name is Eric Hardiman, and I'm here with Alyssa Lotmore. Welcome back, Alyssa.
Hey, Eric. Happy fall, I should say, but it's getting a little chilly today.
Happy fall. The weather has turned a little bit. It's definitely chilly. We're excited to have another episode of the Social Workers here. As always, if you've just tuned in and you're listening to WCDB Albany and you have found us on the air, this show is called The Social Workers, and it's a live radio talk show and podcast format where we talk about issues related to the social work profession, issues related to social justice, issues related to the community, and social issues in the community that might impact social workers and the community at large, right, Alyssa?
Yeah, and that brings us to our guest today, because we were talking about how it is fall and October, it's getting chillier, but October is also Spina Bifida Awareness Month. So that is something that we'll be chatting about today with Julia Duff, who is the executive director of the Spina Bifida Association of New York State, and also an alum.
Also an alum, that's right. And a return guest here to the Social Workers. It's always nice to have folks back who've been on the show before. And I believe Julie was on the show prior to the pandemic. So we've got lots to talk about, I'm quite sure. Spina bifida is an issue that not everybody is aware of and not everybody knows about. So we'll get to some of that. But let me go ahead and formally introduce our guest today. Julia Duff is the executive director of the Spina Bifida Association of New York State. She received her bachelor's in psychology at Lemoyne College and her master's in social welfare from here at the University at Albany in 2016. She resides in Colony, New York, and she enjoys spending time both with her family and her dogs. So Julia, welcome back to the Social Workers. It's great to have you here on the show again.
Thank you guys for having me. I always love an opportunity to, one, talk with fellow social workers, but two, talk about Spina Bifida, two great passions of mine.
And we should say congratulations, because there's been some changes at the Spina Bifida Association. You are now not just a local chapter, but a statewide chapter, and you have a new location. But let's first start with the big change of being now the statewide chapter.
Yeah, so, last time we spoke was pre-pandemic, and at that time we were serving all of New York State. We have been for about over a decade, because originally when we were founded in 1993, there were chapters in Western New York and downstate and New York City. So we were one of many. And over the past 30 years, these chapters have slowly dissolved due to a variety of reasons. And so for many years, we were, officially serving Northeastern New York, but with how we understand Spina Bifida, how it impacts a person, a family, a community, there's a ton of disability services, but having a chapter that has the expertise, the resources, the connections, focused on Spina Bifida has been really critical. And so we knew we couldn't just localize that. We couldn't just do that for those in Northeastern New York. And so we sort of used whatever resources we could. We got creative, and our official service area was Northeastern New York, but we had really been serving all of New York State since I started in 2015 as the part-time case manager.
So you started this while you were getting your MSW, it sounds like.
Yep, exactly. So after my first internship at the Independent Living Center of the Hudson Valley, a woman said to me, look, you need to apply for this job. It's 10 hours a week at the Spina Bifida Association, where I'm a board member. And I was like, okay, there's a reference, there's a job opportunity, I'm going to take it. And I always tell my current social work interns, I never had a thought about going into disability services. It wasn't on my radar. And that first year internship and this 10-hour-a-week position completely changed my future and where I want to be for the rest of my career. And I was doing that throughout my second year. And then following graduation, I took on a greater position as the case manager here for about 3 years before becoming the executive director in 2018.
That's great. Well, congratulations on the move. And I guess, you know, for listeners who may be tuning in and didn't hear the earlier episode and maybe aren't as familiar with spina bifida, can you give listeners a quick overview of the condition and sort of what it is exactly and what it is that the association does?
Yep, that's my favorite thing. So spina bifida is a birth defect and it occurs in the first month of pregnancy. The spinal column doesn't form or close properly, and there are nerves that are left exposed and damage occurs to the spinal cord. So someone born with spina bifida could be paralyzed or have mobility limitations. They often use assistive devices with braces or crutches or wheelchairs. There's the impact on continence, so their urological system, their gastroenterological system, secondary conditions, anxiety, depression, hydrocephalus. I mean, all in all, it is just really complex physically and medically. And it's even further exacerbated because no two people with spina bifida are exactly alike. So we talk about the birth defect being an opening on the spine. Well, where does it happen? What is the size? What's the in utero experience? And so we just see this full spectrum of abilities amongst the spina bifida population. And our chapter, which again, we finally changed our name and hired some additional case management staff in 2021 because I was the sole person providing our services in addition to our social work interns who started working with us in 2019. So there was, two people, we were tackling the state. One was, an intern at 16 hours, me at full time. And we knew we needed to get to the point where we could effectively serve all of New York State. And so we hired our first part-time case manager in 2021, who was a previous social work intern. And then in 2022, we hired 2 part-time case managers. And that year, we also brought in 2 social work interns. So now I have 2 throughout the year, and we really doubled our capacity. So now we're able to provide statewide individual and family services. So someone might call our office. I got a phone call today from a doctor, and an adult with spina bifida is living at home and insurance keeps denying their appeal for medical equipment. Over and over, it's clearly medically necessary, but insurance just is not having it. So we step in, we help the consumer advocate, we help the medical provider advocate, gather the resources so that they can have a successful outcome. Another call we got is there's this whole direct service provider crisis right now where it's really hard to pay direct service providers and retain those staff. And this is going on across the state and across the country. And so people who need in-home care are struggling to receive that, which puts them at a huge safety risk. But back to the point, we're helping one of those consumers find the resources to serve the immediate need while the system is catching up with the lack of staffing and resources. So we do a lot of that, responding to requests for services, but our team also will do education outreach, programming, virtual and in person. So some networking events, some education events, as well as advocacy with our legislators, our governor, and the different systems that are serving the spina bifida community, but maybe could be a little more inclusive.
So it sounds like you're doing work it's partly clinical, it's partly individually focused, but it's also looking at communities and, the sort of maybe meso level, but then also the macro level at the state and looking at policy and advocacy. And it sounds like you're doing all kinds of social work all at the same time.
Oh, exactly. It's like a social work extravaganza. Like there's advocacy and we do counseling, and then we do like these large mass awareness appeals and presentations in the community, crisis intervention. We go to the Spina Bifida clinic at Albany Med and meet with patients one-on-one. So it's really awesome being at an agency where we can be like, oh, this is a need. All right, let's get the resources. Let's find a way to address it and just go ahead and tackle it without, politics getting in the way or funders getting in the way. It's just like, we have a need, we get it funded, we approach it, and we make it the world a better place for those we serve.
And you were mentioning how you have increased your staff size, which is great. You've taken more interns, and now your clients or their consumers are statewide. So the new office space that you have, what are some future plans to do with that? I mean, now you have more staff, more resources, you're recognized as a statewide chapter and a new space. What are some of the goals or your vision for where the Spina Bifida Association is going to go?
So it's actually funny, Alyssa, because when we hired the 2 case managers, we knew we were going through the name change and our lease was up for renewal. So we had this like tornado of activity going on this spring. We met with our landlord and we were like, look, like we're getting bigger and our space feels like it's shrinking in on us, but we have a great relationship. We don't want to move. We love our local connections. And we were lucky. She was like, look, we have this space. It's similarly priced. And we came over here and there was 3 offices, like 3 rooms that you could have an office in. And we were blown away. We worked in a tiny office where everyone could hear everything. There was no privacy. And we just now have a dedicated room for our interns and case managers, a dedicated room for reception, storage, a kitchen. It's some of like the basic things, but we now have the like space to have the hiring capacity we need to respond to 4,000 people in the state. So the move was like just the cherry on top, because in social work, we of course get into issues of privacy and having people come in the office and respecting their rights. And we were doing the best we could, but now we can do a lot more. And what's even cooler is our social work interns are charged now with helping us identify where the pockets exist in the state. So is it regional? Are there areas of New York State that we have families that are maybe connected to a hospital or another agency, but don't know that we exist and serve them? Are there age groups that we haven't been creating targeted programming and interventions for because maybe that wasn't the most pressing need on paper? Are there areas and systems, employment, housing, transportation that we have been neglecting because it wasn't the most pressing need? Our interns are working on identifying those pockets and creating strategies for us to fill those gaps now that we have the space, the personnel, and the resources to be the agency we've been wanting to be.
Yeah, you mentioned 4,000 people around the state. Is that what you're estimating the current number of Spina Bifida impacted individuals is?
Exactly. Okay. So we don't know everyone, of course, but we also did just change our name. We've welcomed about 20 new families so far this year, and that's not newborns, that's families. So it grows pretty rapidly, about 2 new referrals a month. And based on the national estimates and then the New York State population, the number we get is around 4,000 people living with Spina Bifida in New York State. On top of that, though, we also serve caregivers, extended family, service providers, teachers, therapists, medical providers, etc. So our actual consumer list is about quadruple what the individuals impacted by Spina Bifida are.
And I'm so curious, you mentioned the national picture too. I would assume there's a national association for Spina Bifida, and I'm wondering what your connection is with them and sort of how you see, maybe this is a big question, but how you see New York fitting in the comparatively with the rest of the country? Is this, a typical state for the spina bifida support, or is it, where do you see it fitting in?
That's actually really funny. So we work very closely with national, and ever since COVID, we also work very hand in hand with our chapters across the country, because a lot of our programs can be done virtually. So I've done 2 virtual conferences this year with our national association, as well as with various chapters in Iowa and Greater New England and Texas and Arizona. So we partner a lot together, and our national association is very focused on big picture change. So how do we improve clinical care across the country? How do we garner funding for better research to improve healthcare outcomes for consumers across the country? And we are like it sort of tunnels to us, and we use our ground level abilities to reach the community and get that information back up the tunnel. So it's very back and forth between us. We give them information, they give us support. It's an awesome relationship. However, our chapter is incredibly unique. There are many chapters across the country who don't have social work support. We were the first chapter to bring in social workers to provide individual and family services.
Interesting.
Yeah, the need was just a little bit higher here. They do a lot of the same education outreach, programming, and advocacy. But when I was hired, I think it was coincidental that I was a social worker. And the position evolved with me. It started at 10 hours a week. It ended up being 30 hours a week. So once we realized, the position grew as the needs grew. And I think once we brought in a social worker, it was like, we need to have this staff person. And other chapters are starting to consider mirroring that to help them respond to requests from consumers as well. But we have definitely pioneered that approach as one of the chapters of our National Spina Bifida Association.
Now, October is Spina Bifida Awareness Month. And as we were talking about the national chapter and then also your statewide chapter, are there anything being planned or that we should know about that's happening during this month?
Yes. So the theme that we have chose across the nation for October is, what do you want the world to know about spina bifida? We have received a lot of stories already while we're gearing up for our awareness campaign about, children who are defying the odds and adults who are thriving in their community. There's of course challenges. Spina bifida is a chronic and complex condition. And, this is worsened by the fact that disability isn't always included. People often, if you don't have a disability, you might see someone who has a disability and think, that's tough, or, oh, I feel so sorry for them. And, these are just people who were born different. They don't know another way. But that stigma around disability is even more of, a barrier to equity and inclusion. So we're really trying to change the narrative through this awareness campaign that it's not a death sentence, that people with disabilities, specifically spina bifida, can lead very full and meaningful lives. And that the more they are included, the more opportunities they have to have a seat at the table, the more we can help people recognize that, change the narrative. People with disabilities are the largest minority group in the world. And they cross-sect with all other minority groups. There's, no discriminating when it comes to spina bifida. Yet it's one of the least, in my opinion, discussed and included population at times, where it's not always brought to the table, and they're not always there to be brought to the table. And that is what we want to change. Every single awareness month, we are inching our way towards a world where people with spina bifida have a seat at the table, have a voice at the table, and that is normal. That is expected. It is not because they need someone with a disability. It's because they deserve to be there.
Yeah. Part of what I hear you saying, Julia, is, the need for public awareness and public education is just so critical. And truthfully, it's a large part of why Alyssa and I do this show, is that there are topics like this topic for whom or for which the need for public education and for increased awareness and just for information to get out there in the public sphere is so important. And it's not enough to just sort of say that, doctors in the medical community know about spina bifida. But what I hear you saying is that there's a larger need for the community and society at large to really understand this issue.
100%. That's absolutely accurate. There's no place where I'm like, all right, you get it. It's like everywhere. And that's also one of my favorite reasons for having social work interns too, because I know when I was in the program, I was talking about spina bifida my second year because that was my job. And I wanted that to be a continued conversation in the SUNY Albany School of Social Welfare. So it was really exciting when I was finally ready to have an intern work with me and continue that conversation at the school.
Yeah, and so what's that been like for you, supervising interns and working with graduate students from our university? I mean, it's a great learning opportunity for them, but I would imagine, it's a professional growth opportunity for you. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
It's been game changing. So when I became executive director, I transitioned from the case manager position, which I loved, and I had to cut the position because of funding. That was like a big heartbreak for me. And I knew that we needed someone to provide those services, but I also knew we still were in the process of getting the funding to hire someone. So I brought on my first social work intern, and it changed everything about our organization. We were with 16 hours a week. She completely tackled our legislative advocacy. And that was my first intern. She just ran with it. She was contacting assembly members, senators, calling consumers to reach out to them. And it was just so above and beyond of what I would have been able to do as a staff of one. And then our next intern came in and she just brought so much to the table. I was her individual skills to help people navigate systems and go into a hospital and work with consumers and public speak and put on programs. She brought this whole new skill set where I was like, let's bring on more and see what else we can do until we could hire someone just a year and a half ago. So for almost 2 years, that was who was providing our services. Yeah. And we never would have been able to be as available and accessible to the spina bifida community without them. And, as a staff of one, it's also nice to have people who think similar to you, not, like groupthink, but the sense of we all want to make a difference. And how do we take your personal and professional expertise and mine and just dream really big and create something special for the community. So it's been so rewarding. It is something I miss them every summer and I miss when they leave. And I'm just so excited to always have new interns come and learn about spina bifida and be a part of our team.
I'm so happy to hear the impact that student interns have had on your organization, because I just am one of those people who believes that a university should be really helping and involved in the community in which it resides. And to know that our interns have made such a big difference in your organization is just really, it makes me all happy.
Yeah. And I also think, not to interrupt you, Alyssa, but I think about, maybe potential listeners who are just learning about social work and maybe, aren't sure what a graduate education in social work might be like, and maybe considering that. I mean, what a great opportunity to come here and get an MSW and have an experience like being placed at the Spina Bifida Association, where they can learn clinical skills, they can work with families, they can work at hospitals, they can work with legislators and assembly members and senators and and do public education and put on workshops. And there's so much that a student can learn in that setting that may not be apparent, when people are just looking at websites and sort of saying, oh, what's a master's degree? But it seems like there's just an incredible wealth of opportunity here from what you're saying.
Exactly. And that was what I wanted to do. I wouldn't be in my dream job if I didn't go to UAlbany and I didn't get my MSW. And there's so much that led up to it and throughout it that got me here. But I wanted to give back to the program as well and just provide an internship that was rewarding, that was educational, and hopefully a little bit fun too. I definitely try and throw that in there. And so we have our annual gala every November, and our 10th annual gala is this November 19th at Wolford's Roost in Albany, New York. And our planning committee every year nominates an individual or group for the You Make a Difference Award. And so in the past, we have nominated Double H Ranch, Dr. Barry Cogan, who is a urologic surgeon at Albany Med, the Daily Gazette, DJ Lou Roberts, who is a big supporter of us. And one of the committee members was like, can we nominate our interns? And I was like, which one and how? And then I was like, wait, you know what? We need to recognize the school. And everyone was just like over the moon, loved the idea, so feels the passion, even on a board level, of how wonderful our interns are and how impactful they are, that everyone was just like full agreement, we need to do this. And I immediately called the school and I was like, look, we need to recognize that you were pivotal in getting us to where we are today, not only personally but professionally. And it's super rewarding to be able to bring in our interns and the School of Social Welfare to our gala this year.
And
That's
I'm
exciting
looking
to
forward to
hear.
it. I'm looking forward to it. I was thrilled when I received your email about that. Again, because it really just, you're an alum, and the fact that you take interns and hearing about the impact that the interns had on your organization, especially through COVID, and then having this award or this recognition was even like a bonus, because it just made me really happy for the students, the organization, and the school. And I'm really looking forward to going to the gala in November.
Yay.
So if you've just tuned in, we've been talking with Julia Duff. Julia Duff is an alum from the School of Social Welfare here at the University of Albany, where she got her master's in social work. She is also currently the executive director of the Spina Bifida Association of New York State. And we've been talking about her work with graduate students, her work with families, her work with legislators and communities, and the entire state of New York, truthfully. So it's really an impressive journey that it sounds like the organization's been on, and that you've been on personally with it, Julia.
It has. It's been a wonderful journey, crazy at times, but honestly, is anything in social work not a little wild at times? It's what keeps us coming back. So
we have no idea what you're talking about, do we, Alyssa?
Oh, but Julia, if people want to reach out, let's say somebody was listening and said, I could really use your services, or a family member can really use the services that the Spina Bifida Association of New York State offers, what is the best way for individuals to reach out to find out more information, or how you might be able to work with them or advocate with them? Yeah,
absolutely. So the best point of contact is our office phone, 518-399-9151. or our website, which is www.sbanys.org. It's still funny to say. I'm still used to calling us Benini and not SBANYS, but we're getting used to the new name still.
Well, congratulations, but that's a big thing. I mean, to be the statewide chapter is a pretty amazing thing, and congratulations for all you have done to get the organization to where it is today, starting out as an intern at the Independent Living Center, taking on a 10-hour-a-week job, to becoming the executive director of your local chapter and helping that transition Forum, a statewide chapter, is pretty amazing, especially when you're a staff of about one or very few people. So congratulations on your success. And, thank you for taking interns to help give them an experience where they can learn and grow and not only help your organization, but take what they're learning to help another organization as they become employed and enter our social work profession.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
You said it very well, Alyssa. I mean, congratulations, Julia, and the hard work that you're doing currently is paying off, and it's really impressive, and it's just wonderful that you're doing this. So we look forward to having you back in the future. We'd love to kind of hear down the road where it goes from here and what the next steps are for the Spina Bifida Association of New York State, where everything heads. I see great things ahead for you, and it really seems like the journey's not over. So keep up the good work.
Absolutely. We are going to keep chugging. Thank you.
And we hope you'll be back to the social workers. Of course, you're always welcome to come back and talk about specific issues or just to update us, just to say hi. It's always good to have return guests as you are here on the social workers.
Oh, definitely. Yes, for sure.
So you've been listening to the social workers on WCDB Albany. I'm Eric, and I'm here with Alyssa Lotmore, my co-host, and we've been talking with Julia Duff, who is the executive director of the Spina Bifida Association of New York State. Julia, once again, thank you for being our special guest today, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you both so much.
Alyssa, do you want to end things out here for us on the social workers?
We have an exciting season planned for, I think our 11th year. So continue to tune in. We're always on WCDB Albany 90.9 FM. And you can always catch us on air online at any time on our podcast, which is, search our handle at Social Workers FM.
Talk about a journey, 11 years. Boy, that's incredible.
So we've had a lot of different topics, but it's great because I love talking to individuals, alums, community partners about what's going on and what's exciting about their organization and what impact they're making. And even what else would I really have talked about Spina Bifida? I mean, I'll be honest, right. It's, I'm able to have conversations with individuals and organizations that I might not have been exposed to before. And that's one of the things that I love about our show is I am also learning. I love that whole lifelong learning mindset. And this is one way that I get to do that through conversations and through these opportunities.
And it's important to think about, and you pinpointed it really well at the beginning of the episode, Alyssa, think about the impact that the university has on the local community, on the regional community, and on the state, that there's incredible work being done by our graduates and being, making a real difference, a social change out there in the community. And sometimes we don't hear about it because the work is so consuming that it doesn't get publicized far and wide. And so every little bit that we can do to help kind of share that story, I think is important.
And we'll definitely be sharing this episode multiple times during October for Spina Bifida Awareness Month and helping to get that message out there about what Spina Bifida is and how we can make sure that individuals with disabilities are brought, there's not that, to help break down that stigma. Yeah. And I think this is one way through advocacy and raising awareness.
So this has been another great episode of The Social Workers. Thank you for listening to WCDB Albany, and stay tuned every Thursday, 10 a.m., where you can hear The Social Workers on WCDB Albany.